Welcome to the Ohio Valley Sports Vlog Video Podcast College Basketball Preview. I'm BJ.
I'm Cody.
I'm Ian.
Alright, let's start out with Ohio State. Really solid year last year. In the midst of the season, they went through a little bit of a losing streak. You didn't know how that was going to go. They really responded well, and they made it all the way to the Elite Eight before being upset by Wichita State. This season, they're ranked in the preseason top 10 again. But there's a lot of question marks coming into this season. Deshaun Thomas, foreone his senior season to go to the NBA, decided that instead of playing in the D League, he'd rather play overseas. So he's overseas right now. So going into this season, you don't know who's going to be your scorer. Aaron Craft is one of the best point guards in the country, but he's not a scorer. So it's really going to be up to guys like LaQuinton Ross and Lenzel Smith Jr. to really pick up the offensive load this year.
Right, and another thing, even at times last year, that's what it was. I mean, because Deshaun Thomas would get the double team or he'd have an off night, and it really struggled because they didn't have that other really go-to guy. But what needs to happen this year is Sam. What's his name, BJ?
Thompson?
No.
Sam Thompson.
The dunker, the high
Yeah.
flyer.
Yeah.
He really needs. Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought he was right. Sam Thompson. He really needs to step up and be a guy who's more than just the highlight reel dunk. They need the scoring options. They need players to step up.
And he has that ability, but
Right.
it just seemed like when he wasn't playing a team that's barely a Division I school, it's like, say, in Big Ten play, he seemed to disappear because he's the type of guy who, sure, when he's on the court, when he's on the court by himself, he's gonna slam it down, but he's not gonna be able to create his own shot. He's not gonna be able to do anything like that. But with a 6'8" frame, you'd like to see him continue to develop.
Drive to the paint. I mean,
And his freshman year, he only averaged 2 points a game. He improved that to 7 points a game last year. So, I mean, there's been some improvement, but you'd like to see more of him creating his own shot. So,
so he becomes valuable on the offensive end. Yes. I mean, again, I think defense has always been Thad Matta's thing. He prides himself on having good defense. I think you'll see that again.
They have the best defensive backcourt in the country.
Right.
When they have them both on the floor together, they're both point guards. So when you have Aaron Craft and Shannon Scott on the floor together, you know it's a time when you want to shut down two guards, and they do it. I mean,
Shut down Trey Burke last year.
Aaron Craft, if you want to see how to play defense in major college basketball, watch the Ohio State game against Michigan last year at Michigan. Aaron Craft turned Trey Burke into a non-factor, which is ridiculously hard to do. But stats-wise, he averaged just a little over 2 steals a game last year. Shannon Scott harassed his opponents too. He had just a little under 2 steals. It's like 1.7 or 1.8. So you really have two great defensive point guards. And that's an asset for a Thad Matta team.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same question marks that you had all the last year. Who's going to be the scorer? Where is the points going to come from? Because at the end of the day, you can talk about great defense all you want. You can talk about having high flyers all you want. You got to score points. You got to put it in the basket. And I know I'm showing my lack of basketball knowledge by saying this, but you have to. That's the way you win basketball games.
Right, and one player I'd really like to see improve this year, who's, in my opinion, has just been an absolute bust since he's come to Columbus, is Amir Williams. He's 6'11". He has he has a big frame to play down low, but he just seems to turn the ball over, miss layups. I mean, last year he was given the starting job, but late in the season he would start most games, but most of the playing time was given to Evan Ravenel, who's since graduated, because he would give Thad Matta a consistent post option. So that's a player I'd like to really see improve. And then a player I'd really like to see get a lot more playing time this year is Amadeo Della Valle. How can you not like that guy? He'll take any three on the court.
He's a sharp shooter.
And he'll hit half of them, too.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think he averaged just over about 40% from the limited action on 3 points that he did take.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was 10 of 26 from three last
Right.
year,
Yeah.
whatever that comes out to be, about
Right.
40% or whatever.
And I think he will get a little more playing time as Thad Matta looks for some scoring options. He's not going to go out and average 22 a game or anything.
Yeah.
But he could be a nice piece off the bench.
And
Yeah.
he really dominated an international tournament this year for Team Italy. He really went out and was the primary scoring option. Another scoring option that we could see this year is Cam Williams, the recruit from Baltimore. Scouts are calling him the best pure scorer in this recruiting class. Obviously, he's not the best player with Andrew Wiggins and Jabari Parker, but scouts are calling him one of the best scorers in this recruiting class. They say he's got great range, consistent stroke, so maybe he'll be one of those scoring options that they need.
Yeah, that'd be a nice surprise. And one last thing on Ohio State before we move on that I'm looking for this year. As smart as Aaron Kraft is off the court and on the court, he really needs to improve on his shooting in terms of realizing he's not the go-to guy at the end of the games. Mm-hmm. Too many times last year and even before that, I mean, he would try to kind of go in and try to get fouled, make the layup because he is a good free throw shooter. But he's got to realize either A, he needs to step up and start hitting those shots, or B, he needs to defer to somebody else who can.
You saw that last year in the second round of the tournament. I can't think of who they played off the top of my head. They're Iowa State. They're on the verge of getting upset, and he hit the game-winning free for them to win.
Right. So
you'd like to see him. You'd like to see him build on that.
But if he doesn't build on that, I'm fine with him being on the court because of how great he is defensively. He just needs to defer to somebody else. Moving on to West Virginia this year, not really a whole lot on them. They didn't have that great of a year last year. Their leading scorer coming back is Aaron Harris, and he only averaged 9.8, not even 10 a game. But the thing with them is they have a lot of recruits coming in to hopefully turn that team around. In the Big 12, I mean, it's not the Big East where they were.
You saw Bob Huggins come in his first couple years he was decent, but he was playing with John Beilein's players. Now that it's his program, you're starting to see a slip. Some of their bigger recruits, Nathan Adrian from Morgantown High School, is a 6'9" forward. They say he's got great shooting range.
Chase Connor, 6'1" guard coming in.
So they're really they're a really young team, which can be good and bad.
But how that works in Kentucky, but they're by no means.
No, they're not Kentucky caliber recruits, but maybe that can kind of lean itself towards success because they weren't there last year. Mm-hmm. They don't have all those previous notions in their head, so maybe that can lead to a little bit of success. And with as bad as WV football is, it'd be nice to see WV fans get to enjoy something.
It would be nice to finally get something rolling down there.
Right.
And I mean, you brought Bob Huggins in to be the leader of this program when John Beilein took the Michigan job. And he's done okay, I guess, but
nothing great, nothing bad.
I think he's far below what people expected of him.
With the Bob Huggins coming in with the name.
It kind of started in the NCAA tournament a couple years ago. They were just absolutely embarrassed in the first round by Gonzaga.
Yeah.
It was a 7-10 matchup. I can't remember off the top of my head who was the 7 and who was the 10. But that's a matchup you think is going to be close. And it was close to a 30-point game. I mean, so that was really where it started going south for the Mountaineers. So here's to hoping that they're a little bit better this year. Another team we want to look at, the Ohio Bobcats, coming off last year. It was a disappointment that they didn't win the MAC tournament. They made it to the championship game. They got that matchup with Akron. You really thought it was going to be like a couple years ago where they beat Akron and made a nice little NCAA tournament run.
You just had to bring them up, didn't you?
But unfortunately for the Bobcats, they fell to Akron. And coming into this year, I mean, they have a lot of question marks.
Yeah,
you want to take over?
I mean, you look back at last year; they were 24-10. They're coming off the Sweet 16 run, the moment that put Ohio basketball on the map forever. They're coming off that. DJ Cooper comes back. Ivo Baltic comes back. Walter Offutt comes back. All the pieces are there for this team to really, really.
They didn't lose a starter in between those two
No, they did not.
Did
they didn't lose. They lost 0% of the points from the Sweet 16 team. Not a single point was lost. They come back and they go 24-10. You figure, okay, that's a good record, for a MAC school. When you play on the road at Memphis, you play on the road, the Robert Morris loss really wasn't that bad, but the thing that disappointed me the most was that this team last year lost 3 times to Akron. 3 times.
That's not good.
That is your top opponent in the conference. It is Ohio and Akron in the MAC. Every single year, you have to beat Akron in the MAC. You have to do it. And now, you're coming off that, you lose in the first round of the NIT to Denver.
Ouch.
That's not the way you wanted to send the winningest senior class in Ohio basketball history out. A senior class that had 3 wins in the NCAA tournament. A senior class that had 2 MAC tournament titles, a MAC regular season title. But you have, like you said, a lot of question marks on this team. The leading returning scorer is Nick Kellogg from a year ago. And he averaged 8 points a game.
Can I ask you something about Ohio University?
Yes.
Why do they have a lot of people's sons go there?
I don't know. I love Ohio University, and I'm sure they fell in love with it for the same reasons I did. But you got to figure, the way I look at it, you're going to look at the starting 5, and it's going to be Stevie Taylor running the point. I love Stevie Taylor. I think Stevie Taylor is probably the most high-energy point guard in college basketball. The guy's out there pounding the floor. He doesn't score a lot. He only averaged 3.1 points per game a year ago. But he's a high-energy kind of guy. He's really fun to watch. He's great with the ball. And I think he's going to be the guy to really take over the absence of DJ Cooper. You can't fill DJ Cooper's shoes.
No.
You can't fill DJ Cooper's shoes, but he's going to be the guy that takes over. And even if he doesn't, they have Javaris Willis, a transfer from Texas Tech, sat out all last year because of the transfer rules. While he was at Texas Tech, he started 30 of 31 games in the 2011 season for them. He averaged 8 points a game, and he totaled 58 assists that year. They've got a lot of transfers coming into this team. They had a lot of big transfers coming in. The biggest one of them all would be Maurice Nador. He's a 6'9 junior, hails from Senegal, and he's been kind of a journeyman. He left Senegal in his teenage years to go play in Japan. And then after Japan, he came to the United States and settled in junior college in New York. And he stumbled his way into Athens, Ohio now. He played on a team that went 34-8 in junior college a year ago and averaged 16 points a game and 10 rebounds per game.
That's good.
I mean, he's been a guy when people found out he was coming to Ohio, people got really excited, and it's time to see why. He's going to be a really good player this year. They had a very good freshman recruiting class come in. DJ Wingfield's a 6'5" kid from Ohio. He's 3-time first-team All-Ohio.
Wow.
District Floor Player of the Year in 2012. They had Antonio Campbell come in. He's a 6'8" kid from Kentucky, 279 pounds. Kentucky District 9 Player of the Year in 2012. Wadley Montpremier from Miami, Florida, 6'10", 235. That's the difference with me and this team now. In previous years, Ohio's big weakness is that they haven't had height. They haven't had length. They finally got some length now. You have guys like John Smith and returning guys like that who have always been the big down low presence. And now you have guys that you can bring off the bench who are also big. It's going to be fun to watch. This team has a really, really brutal kind of schedule, especially in the out-of-conference. They play one of the best out-of-conference schedules that I've seen in a long time. They open up with Northern Iowa, and people who know mid-major basketball know that Northern Iowa is a really, really good mid-major program. And then the matchup that everyone has been circling since it's been announced, especially I know everyone in Athens has been circling since it's been announced. Ohio at Ohio State, November 12th. That's going to be a fun basketball game to watch. I'm just telling you right now. I'm not going to say Ohio wins that game,
It could be a potential to be a good game.
but it's going to be a good basketball game.
That's
I
two
guarantee you. That's two really good programs
with a lot of questions
Yes.
on both sides.
And I'll tell you this much, Ohio is going to be ready to go for that one. Because if there's one school I think that Ohio dislikes more than Marshall and Miami and Akron, it's Ohio State. Then you play at home against Valparaiso, another really good mid-major program. You play at home against UMass, who is probably going to go win the A10 this year. You've got a road game at UNC Asheville, and then of course the two big conference games against Akron.
But what works in their favor, though, Ian, with playing that tough out-of-conference schedule, if they could catch Ohio State, because like I said, I think Ohio State early is going to have some question marks.
Yes.
They might not be answered yet until later on in the season. They could catch an Ohio State team and pull the upset off. That'd be huge for their tournament hopes. Because if you look, like you said, Ian, they went 24-10 last year.
Yeah.
That's a good, solid season. Not if you're a MAC team
Yeah.
that didn't win your championship.
Yeah.
You're just not going to get, even with the expanded field, you're not going to get in over an ACC team.
And the MAC is a good basketball conference. It really is.
It just doesn't get the respect of the others. So, I mean, if they could beat a UMass or a Valparaiso or a Northern Iowa, if they could beat a couple, they got some quality wins.
And they've got a game against Oakland, too, that we didn't talk about. And Oakland's another really good mid-major team.
And that's what's going to be the difference this year, I think, from last year, is that the good out-of-conference schedule.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're going to go undefeated and win all those games, but if they can win one or two of those games and then have a solid MAC season, which I think they will.
Yeah. The big trick for them is they get Toledo twice this year, and Toledo's been one of the better teams in the Western Division. That's gonna be another big one to watch, but you never know.
On all reality, though, it probably does come down to the MAC championship.
Yeah, it's probably gonna come down to who wins the MAC tournament.
Like always.
Yep.
Ian, do you see them going back to the MAC championship game this year?
I think I see
barring a major upset.
I think I see them playing for a MAC title again this year. I mean, all the other teams in the conference get better, and I mean that's obviously good for the conference as a whole. But at the end of the day, it is Akron, Ohio, and everybody else in the MAC.
Yes.
It's Akron, Ohio, and everybody else, and it's gonna be Akron, Ohio playing in Cleveland for the MAC title. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but being a part of the rivalry for a couple years, that's one of the up-and-coming best rivalries in college basketball.
One of the better parts about it is they've matched up for the MAC championship the past couple of years. There's so much riding on that game.
Mm-hmm.
Winner goes to the NCAA tournament, loser goes to the NIT. Who wants to go to the NIT? No one. So that really adds to a good rivalry is when there's big stakes that go with it.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at another local team, the Pitt Panthers, coming off a loss in the NCAA tournament to Wichita State. I mean, they just really take everyone out locally. They just another Jamie Dixon type year. I mean, they were solid. They weren't bad. They weren't good.
Struggled with inconsistency most of the year.
Then they lose Steven Adams to the draft. Trey Woodall graduates. Trey Ziegler is transferred
to TCU.
So you're losing a lot of minutes on a team that wasn't that great to begin with. But Jamie Dixon always finds a way to get his team to play at the same level, whether they're underachieving or overachieving. He always finds that happy medium of we're going to be about an 8 seed, we're going to compete in ACC
and that's
or the Big East.
That's why people hate Jamie Dixon.
Right. I mean, he was signed to an extension, but if I'm a Pitt fan, I'm not a big fan of that move because you're saying you're okay with being mediocre for another 10 years, and I wouldn't be if I were a Pitt fan.
Yeah, and a couple other players you left off the key departures. Dante Taylor graduated, and then J.J. Moore transferred to Rutgers. So, I mean, that's 5 people that they're losing. I mean, the one I think that hurts the most. I know Trey Woodall was the pretty much one of the captains of last year's team. He was the heart and soul. But Steven Adams probably had the most talent on that team. He was coming out of Australia, a big center that really just never got the touches last year that he probably should have. I'm not comparing him to a Greg Oden-ish, but he had the potential to put up some numbers like that. He just really never got the consistency to. But on a bright note, they are led. The Pitt Panthers are led by two seniors coming back this year, and Lamar Patterson and Talib Zana both averaged just about 10 points a game. And then they have sophomore guard James Robinson coming back, who averaged just over 6 points as his at his freshman year. They have some good recruits coming in with Jamel Artis, Michael Young, Chris Jones, kid from Hawaii, Joshua Koa, 6'1" guard, 150 pounds. Yeah. So they're a young team, Ian, with a lot of question marks. They have the two senior leaders, but are the sophomores and freshmen going to be able to step up? And it's really, now that I think about it, it's really a bad time for them to be going into the ACC.
Oh.
I mean, I know the Big East is a good basketball conference, but I mean them and Syracuse going into the ACC with Duke, Carolina, Virginia Tech, Virginia, Boston College. I mean,
and then you think next year you're adding Louisville as
right.
well. So I mean, that's just going to be a ridiculously loaded basketball conference.
But I see them
which is kind of an irony because basketball is not really thought of when you add all these teams to your conference. It's always football is the front runner, no matter what kind of school you are. But in the process of trying to get a really good football conference, they made possibly the best basketball conference that we've seen in a while.
Yeah.
Right. And I'd probably say Pitt probably.
I mean,
I think they'll find their way into the NCAA
about
tournament.
18 to 20 games. They'll back their way into the NCAA tournament. It's Jamie Dixon kind of team.
Yeah. Let's go with some sleeper teams this year. I'll start with you, Ian. Just give me a name, a team you think's gonna surprise some people, maybe make the tournament and make a little bit of noise.
Illinois.
They've underachieved for years.
Yeah.
This is probably a good
and
time.
I say that entirely because of John Gross, former Ohio head coach, a guy that I loved when he was there, and a guy that I still love now that he's gone to Illinois. He had them playing really well a year ago. I think they're only going to get better. I like Illinois to really fly under the radar and maybe make the NCAA tournament this year.
Sticking to like a smaller conference kind of sleeper team, I'm going to go with the Ohio Bobcats. Yeah, they were kind of above the radar. You would think last year, you Sweet 16 team returning 100% of your points. This year, not a lot of people are thinking about them. I mean, you lose the coach to Illinois. You lose DJ Cooper. You lose a lot of players. But there's something about Ohio. So I look for them to win the MAC and make a little bit of noise in that NCAA tournament.
Trying to gain some popularity here with this pick there. I'm going to stick with the smaller conference. A team last year that was playing really well. A lot of people liked. St. Louis was playing. They played great defense last year. They ended up losing in the NCAA tournament though. But I looked for them to continue a great run again this year. And BJ, I know it's early, but let's go with some national championship. Some picks.
College basketball is one game that can be dominated by one player. So I'm going to go with Kansas and Duke in the national title game, with Kansas winning.
So many teams. I mean, you got Kentucky, who always reloads, Kansas. But I think I'm going to go with Duke and Louisville, just because with Jabari Parker with Coach K, that just seems deadly. Ian?
Give me Kentucky. Too many talented players.
All right, thanks for watching, everybody.